Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us now continue with our biology class, and the topic we are discussing is microorganisms. We are continuing with the same topic as we have discussed in the previous lectures, and that is microorganisms, friends and foes. So these organisms, they could be our friends, and that's what we have started with in our previous two lectures. Friends are those which could be useful to us. Now we are finding out, we are studying that how these microorganisms are, they can act as our friends or how they are useful to us. In the previous classes, we have studied that these uses could be at the domestic level, for example in the formation of curd, etc. Similarly, they could be so much useful at medical level, like in the preparation of antibiotics and the vaccine. Now further let us continue with the more and more uses of these little friends. So next we are studying about the environmental use of these microorganisms. Microbes we are studying since long that these are so little kind of organisms which could not be seen by the naked eye. But still, they are very much useful. They are present in our surrounding, in our environment. So in this chapter, let us start further that how these microorganisms are playing an important role in the environment. So before we switch to the uses, we must actually know that what this environment means here. We know that in our surrounding, there is the presence of living and non-living things. So these living and non-living things, they are the biotic and abiotic components of our surrounding. So in short we can say environment is space. It is everything which is present in our surrounding comprised of biotic as well as abiotic components. These biotic and abiotic components, they interact with each other so as to maintain the balance in the environment, in our ecosystem. So these microorganisms, even they are the part of our environment. So they are also playing a very important role in maintaining this balance here. These organisms, they are so much important because they can actually help in the maintenance of the balance of various components in our surrounding. Besides, they could be used artificially so as to clean our surrounding. In short, when we relate microbes to the environment, then these can be divided into two categories. One is the cleaning of the environment and second is the maintenance of ecological balance. So here we are studying this cleaning and the cleaning of the environment. How these microbes can help in cleaning up of the environment. It seems like something unique, but it is a true fact. These microbes, they are present in the soil, water, as well as in the air. So they are actually consuming the particles or the substances which are present in our surrounding for their own survival. And when such type of consumption is taking place, then definitely what will happen? We will use it up for their own growth. They will ingest the surrounding particles and they will digest it and they will extract energy and the raw materials, and therefore they will grow their own colonies. Now this important fact is actually utilized for this particular purpose, that is for the cleaning of the environment. So basically plants and animals, they consume the things and they excrete out the waste material or the undigested food material. Now this undigested food material, it is acted upon by the microorganisms. So basically we are making use of this property of the microorganisms for our own use. What we are doing is actually we are collecting this plant and animal waste and we are disposing it in a pit. Then we are collecting it. When it is dumped up, then we are mixing it with the microorganisms. the specific microorganisms which can use that undigested food material present in the fecal material or which was present in the waste. Which waste? The one which was excreted out by the animals or the plant waste. So when this type of waste is mixed up with these microorganisms, then what will happen? These microorganisms, they will start using up those particular substances and they will use that as a nutrient for itself. Now as it is using this nutrient material, ultimately it will expel out some waste also. Now this waste which is coming out is definitely of certain more simpler kind. So this simpler kind of substances now which was collected in this surrounded waste is now known as a manure, or it could be known as a compost. So this is how we are taking the advantage of a natural property of such microorganisms. For what? For the preparation of manure. So because of this unique property or this normal property of microorganism has been used uniquely for two purposes. For number one, cleaning up of the environment. Whatever waste is actually disposed in the surrounding is now, it is not now laid directly over there. Rather, it is being reutilized for the preparation of manure. So this formation of manure is going to be a advantageous thing at next level. Why this manure is so important? Because now this manure could be used at agriculture level. You can see this picture here. We said we are collecting the waste and dumping it in a pit. So this is one of the kind of a pit in which the waste is being collected. Which waste? Animal and plant waste. So basically what is the plant waste here? Now this plant waste, it could be like we can say which is the debris of the plants, the rotten leaves of the plants, we can say the vegetable waste coming out from the kitchen. So similar kind of waste is coming, it is actually considered as the plant waste or plant oriented waste. Why plant oriented? Because the waste which is actually coming out from the products of the plants also, even that is considered as the plant waste here. So all that is collected here in the compost pit. Besides this, animal waste, example we can say like cow dung. So similar kind of waste is actually a animal waste. In whatever is the case, these samples are collected in the pits. To make a pit, again, there are many methods to be followed. This is one of the example in which a kind of tank has been constructed, and in this constructed tank, the waste is going to be collected. Besides this, trenches could be made, land filling could be used for similar purposes. Like what we are doing is, we are digging the large pits and we are dumping it with the waste material, and then we are just pouring one layer of soil over it, and then this type of area could be used for the gardening, or it could be used for the agricultural purpose. Now this is going to be a very rich type of soil. In this we have actually enriched the soil with the basic nutrient elements. The elements which could be now easily used up by the plants. So they can absorb these simplified forms, and definitely if the forms are simplified, the plant growth would be better. The next diagram you can see here is the compost. Now this compost you must have seen in the garden, even in the market it is being sold at in the various forms like in packets or something. So it is something very common which could be easily observed in your surrounding itself. In the gardens, in the market, in the nurseries, in the agricultural fields, etc. So we are continuously saying that the nutrients are released in this process. Microorganisms, they are consuming the complex material from these waste, and they are digesting it within the cell itself, within their system. So over there, when the digestion is taking place, what will happen? The enzymes will act upon these complex substances and they will convert it into the simpler form. Those simpler forms are known as nutrients. Nutrients for what? For the plants. Where are they present? In the compost. When this compost or the manure is mixed up with the normal soil, then it is going to enrich it with the specific nutrients. And easily these plants can now absorb the nutrients from with the help of the root, and the growth is definitely increased. Now we have seen that what things are being used, which thing is present in the environment which is supposed to be cleaned up. So that was the waste coming from different resources. Second thing we are saying, who is actually cleaning this system? It is microorganisms. So the next question that comes in our mind is that which microorganisms are being used for this particular purpose? And secondly, what is the fate of such type of action? So the microorganisms which are used commonly for this particular purpose, they could be like they could be some bacteria. Secondly, it could be like fungi. Next, it could be, we can say like protozoa. It could be actinomycetes, etc. There are so many other organisms, microorganisms, which are used for similar type of purposes. Now, these bacteria, what type of bacteria are being used? Bacteria is a class which is actually a prokaryotic organisms. They lack a nucleus. So these bacteria are actually mixed up with this particular soil, or we can say like waste, and then they will use up the simpler substances. Fungi, although it is a kind of unicellular organism, but is developing in colonies. It is present in the form of filaments or similar structures. Besides, there are another class of organisms which is protozoa. Now these protozoa, they are unicellular organisms. These unicellular organisms which are found in water or in our surrounding like soil also. Out of these three classes, fungi and protozoa, these both are eukaryotic, whereas bacteria, it is prokaryotic. Now can you imagine something about the complexity or the simplicity of such organisms, the relation between these organisms? Let me summarize the process in a very short, in a very 2 or 3 sentences. Basically what happens here, these organisms, there are different category of such organisms. That is, they can grow at normal temperature, or there is a different class which can grow even at high temperature. Now these organisms, basically what is happening here, initially they are incubated or they are placed at a normal temperature. At that, these organisms will start growing. Fungi, it will use up the undigested material or the waste present in the surrounding substances. They will digest, they will release something similar or a simpler form of substances. Now these more simpler substances, they will be used up back by the bacteria. Bacteria will use up and is going to release more and more simpler form of things. Besides, the protozoa, they can even feed on fungus or the bacterial cells. So they will use these cells as well as the products present in the surrounding, and definitely they are going to digest them in a simpler or substances. So in short, the compost which is being produced will be comprised of group of these organisms as well as the simpler substances. So whatever debris which were present in the waste, they will be decomposed completely. And these simpler substances are further used up by the other plants and the animals. Animals can use such products indirectly. They are not going to use the things directly. Plants, they will be grown at a faster rate, and those are going to definitely help animals to get feed upon, and they are going to grow furthermore. This is how the compost is being produced. Now we have seen the example of open disposable system, but nowadays the large fermenters or the bioreactors are also used at large industrial level, and thus similar compost or the manures are being produced and they are being supplied at large scale in the market. Besides this, the microorganisms can also be helpful for the degradation of other substances. Now here we are making use of this structure as compost, but there are many other substances in our surrounding which are actually biodegradable. They are toxic for the living system, but these microorganisms will help to decompose such type of material, and hence they are going to help in the cleaning up of the environment. Besides this, these microorganisms can even decompose various substances which are producing the foul smell, and once they are being converted into the simpler form, the foul smelling is going to be removed. It is going to be vanished from the surrounding. So this way the microorganisms could be very useful at environmental scale. Initially, they can be used up for the cleaning up of the environment in various ways, like as we have studied just now, degradation of various substances, removal of the foul smell producing substances, or even in the production of the manure or the organic compost. Besides this, even if we are not using them directly at industrial level, or even when they are present in the soil as a natural habitat, they are very useful. Why? Because they can help in increasing the soil fertility directly. When we were studying the cleaning of the environment, out of that process also advantage was there. Which advantage? We used it for production of the compost. But just imagine, we have collected these microorganisms from natural resources only. So now can you think that these microorganisms, when present naturally in our surrounding, how they can be useful? And in this case, they play a very important role in maintaining the balance. Balance between what? Between biotic and abiotic components. Biotic components, they are the living part of the environment. Abiotic, they are the non-living components of our environment. Can you think of certain examples here? Biotic, we, the human beings, the microorganisms, all other living things you can see in our surrounding, which can grow, which can reproduce, they all come under the biotic category. Plants, animals, fishes, microorganisms, etc. Many examples are there. Similarly, can you think of certain abiotic components? In short, we can say like soil, whatever non-living things we are seeing in our surrounding, they can be considered as the abiotic components. So the substances present in the air, substances present in the soil or water, or the furniture present in your surrounding. Many things are there. Now just imagine one thing. We have quoted two type of examples under this abiotic category: furniture and your let us say soil. So we have to understand this thing again. Abiotic or the non-living components, we are actually concentrating on natural non-living system. So further, these microorganisms helps in the maintenance of this balance. Just imagine, if this balance is not there, then what will happen? Normally, biotic and abiotic, these components, they interact with each other for the maintenance of our environment. If biotic components are increasing tremendously, then what will happen? The abiotic or these natural non-living resources will be less. They are not increasing at a natural rate. They are not reproducing. They are constant. So they are being used up by the living organisms. In return, these biotic components return the several abiotic elements back to the environment. Let me quote a very brief example here just to understand the fact. Example, oxygen is present in our surrounding. It is a abiotic component. The living organisms, let us say animals, they take in this non-living oxygen and then oxidizes the glucose. They extract energy with the help of oxygen. In return, what it is doing? It is giving out the carbon dioxide. So now you imagine, if this oxygen is continuously taken up by the living organisms and the carbon dioxide is released in our surrounding, then can you think of the percentage of these gases present in the surrounding? They will change exclusively, which actually does not happen. Why? Because opposite to the animals, plants are also present. These plants, they will use up this carbon dioxide and it will release the oxygen during photosynthesis. So this oxygen is further utilized by the living organisms again, and this way the balance is maintained between the level of oxygen and the CO2, and they are also supporting the survival of the biotic components. Now we are actually studying here what? The role of microorganisms. When we go at lower level, these microorganisms also help in maintaining similar balance in various geochemical cycles. So we are studying the role of microorganism in increasing the soil fertility. So in agriculture or in the soil level, these microorganisms are actually useful, or they are helping in increasing the fertility of the soil by increasing the nitrogenous compound, by increasing the content of nitrogenous elements in the soil. Not only this, they can also be useful in maintaining the balance between various other similar kind of elements. Why we are giving stress over nitrogen only? We have highlighted, we have written this word nitrogen here. The reason is that because nitrogen is essentially required for the growth of plants. In general, if we see, we can say the nitrogen is present in the surrounding in its elemental form, that is N2. So this nitrogen gas is at 78%, but it could not be used up by the plants. So how it is to be used up? It is an essential component required for the growth of the plant, but it could not be used up directly as N2 gas. So what should be done? We have nothing to do in that. The same role is actually played by the living microorganisms. Which living microorganisms? Those which are present in the soil. In fact, there are different organisms present over there which participate in this particular function. So the process which is actually converting this nitrogen, atmospheric nitrogen, into the absorbable form with respect to plants, the form in which plants can utilize the nitrogen. So this process of conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into the usable form by the microorganisms is known as nitrogen fixation. Conversion of nitrogen into usable form. The process is known as the nitrogen fixation. Now the question is, how the process is being carried out? How does it take place? It takes place either with the help of microorganisms, or it can be done by the physical process, that is with the help of lightning. You know what is lightning? The sparks which are generated during the rainy season in the clouds. So that lightning also helps in fixing of the nitrogen. Besides, these microorganisms can also help in the conversion of this atmospheric nitrogen into the usable form. So now can you think of that what is that form of nitrogen which is easily absorbed by the plants? That is another question now that should come in your mind. So basically the process is nitrogen fixation, but what is that fixed form of the nitrogen which is converted by these microorganisms or by the physical process? So basically the nitrogenous form is actually the oxidized form of nitrogen. It could be in the form of nitric oxide or nitrous oxide, that is NO2 or NO3, nitrites and nitrates. This is the form in which they could be used up, they could be absorbed by the roots of the plants. So before we switch to microorganisms, because the topic is actually related to microorganisms only, let us understand briefly how this physical process is actually performing the process. Normally, during this rainy seasons and all, the sparks are being generated, due to which what will happen? Some energy is being released, right? So what will happen to the energy? You know the rule, energy could not be created, it could not be destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to the another. So basically the energy which has been released during this process is conserved. Conserved in which form? In the form of nitrite and the nitrate. The nitrogen which is present in the environment will get fused up with the oxygen due to this energy or by consuming this energy, and thus it will form the oxides of the nitrogen. Then further, along with the rain, these nitrites or the nitrates, they can come back to the soil and or to the earth, and over there the microorganisms are present. These microorganisms, they can use these nitrates and nitrates, and they can be easily be transferred to the plants. Besides, the nitrites or the nitrates which are now present in the soil, they could be directly used up. This is how lightening can help in the fixation of the nitrogen. Now, let us find out which microorganisms are there which are being used up for the similar process. So first example here given is Rhizobium. You must have heard this particular name. This Rhizobium is a bacteria. Where this bacteria is actually present? It is present in the root nodules. Root nodules of what? Leguminous plant. So these leguminous plant, do you know which plants are called as legumes? You must have seen the roots of certain plants which are having certain ball-like structures stuck to their roots. So such plants which are having these type of root nodules over there, they are actually the carrier of the Rhizobium bacteria. Can you think of an example? It is like pea plant. It is an example of leguminous plant. Now here, these Rhizobium are residing inside the root nodules, and they are able to absorb this atmospheric nitrogen. So they use up the atmospheric nitrogen, converts it into the nitrites and the nitrates, and then it is being used up by the plant directly. Besides that, there are the other category of the organisms or the bacteria which is actually used for this particular purpose. That is nitrogen fixation. Example given here is like blue-green algae. Blue-green algae means cyanobacteria. So you remember where you have studied about this cyanobacteria? Exactly. The cyanobacteria is again an example of bacteria. It is not an algae. We have written here algae, but this is not a true type of algae. It is a kind of bacteria. A bacteria which is photoautotrophic, which can synthesize its own food. And since it can produce its own food, therefore we are referring it as an algae. But it is not algae, neither it is eukaryotic. Usually algae are the eukaryotic plant organisms of plant origin. But here this blue-green algae is actually from which origin? It is from the prokaryotic bacterial origin. Even these can help in fixing up of the nitrogen. They are present in the surrounding, in the soil, and they can use up the nitrogen, and they can definitely convert it into the usable form. You can see the diagram here. This first picture is showing the root of leguminous plant. So this leguminous plant, they are having these round ball-like structures. You can see here small round structures here. These are known as the nodules. Inside this nodule, what is present? There is a presence of bacteria. Which bacteria? Rhizobium. This Rhizobium actually participates in absorbing the nitrogen from the atmosphere, and then it converts it into through the stepwise reaction. The another example given here is cyanobacteria. Now this picture is actually an example of filamentous cyanobacteria. These bacteria actually they can grow in the form of spheres. I mean it could be a colony which is spherical, or it can grow as a filamentous colony. So this filamentous colony basically helps in the absorption of the nitrogen from the atmosphere. Besides this, there are certain other bacteria also which participates in the conversion of nitrogen into nitrogenous compounds, and this also makes an important step of the nitrogen cycle. This consumption, this participation of microbes does not stops at this step only. But basically what happens here, once the nitrogen is being consumed, what will happen? It will eliminate waste also, the nitrogenous waste. These plants, they will use up the nitrogenous compounds, and these compounds will be used up for the preparation of complex substances within the plants. The next what will happen? They will actually they are actually used up by the animals. Further, the animals will also assimilate compounds, and then when these plants and animals they die, they will be added to the surrounding in the form of waste only. So either they are releasing the nitrogenous waste in the form of urine in case of animals only, or the plants and animals when they die, they add up to the nitrogenous content. It gets converted to ammonia. Then ammonia is used up by another category of microorganism, like we can say Nitrosomonas, Nitrobacter. Even they will use up these ammonified form, and they will convert it into the nitrite and the nitrate, which is again used up by the plants and organisms. Now can you think of important point at this time? We are continuously saying the nitrogen is being absorbed. Now if the entire content of this nitrogen is being absorbed, then what will happen? A time will come when the entire content of nitrogen is vanished. It is over. Now what will happen? From where we will get the nitrogen? So my dear students, this is just the half phase of the nitrogen cycle. On the other hand, the various other category of microorganisms are also present, which will convert these nitrites and nitrates back into the elemental form and release it back into the environment. So this is how the nitrogen balance would be there. So in short, we can say on one side, when these microorganisms are helping in increasing the soil fertility in terms of its nitrogenous compound content, then on the other hand, even it is helping in maintaining the balance between the elemental form of nitrogen and this consumed form of nitrogen too. So in the next session, we will continue further and we will explain that how these organisms help in maintaining the balance of various content. And this we will do with the help of nitrogen cycle. So in the next session, we are going to discuss it further. Till then, study well. Thank you so much for listening to the lecture. Have a great day. Bye.